Welcome back. Earlier, I spoke with Colorado Democratic Congressman Jason Crow. He sits on the House Armed Services Committee. Here's our thoughts on the war with Iran. Congressman, from your vantage point, where is the war with Iran heading?
Well, right now, it's a fairly unmitigated disaster, right? Iran controls the Straits. They didn't control the Strait before the war. The Straits have been mined, and it'll take God knows how long to unmine it, even after there's a deal struck between the United States and Iran, which does not look very promising. Americans are paying $500 million more a day at the pumps. That money is going to subsidize Russia's war effort in Europe. And the terrorist threat and the cyber threat against Americans has skyrocketed, and there's a more hardline regime that has taken over in Iran. So we have failed and are failing by almost every measure here. This has been a disaster.
Give me two scenarios. Give me your most optimistic scenario, how this works out well for the U.S. military personnel now numbering some 50,000 in the region, and the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Well, the worst case scenario is obvious in that this continues to escalate and spin out of control. We continue to lose service members killed and wounded. We continue to spend $2 billion a day of American taxpayer money that should be going to schools, to infrastructure, to healthcare on a war that's going to end poorly. I think the best case scenario at this point is that somehow this administration is able to take an off ramp and basically reset us to where we were either at the beginning of the war or maybe reset us to where they were in the Obama administration when there actually was a diplomatic deal to conduct inspections and prevent nuclear weapons in Iran, which, by the way, under the first administration, the first Trump administration, they tore up.
From your vantage point, has there been anything gained by the strategic degradation of Iranian either naval, air force, or ballistic missile power?
Certainly no long-term gain, right? If Iraq and Afghanistan taught us anything after $5 to $8 trillion, 20 years of fighting, and we spent 20 years to replace in Afghanistan the Taliban with the Taliban, and about 15 years to replace Saddam Hussein with ISIS and now a faltering government. This does not turn out well for us, right? So all the time we talk about the number of enemy KIA, the number of tanks destroyed, the number of ballistic missiles destroyed. These counts, these metrics remind me of what we did in Afghanistan. They remind me of what we did in Iraq and what we did in Vietnam, for that matter. Generals and admirals talk about things destroyed, things blowing up, what's going to be the new strategy, what's going to be the new approach, and we just spin our wheels, spend trillions of dollars of taxpayer money. Americans pay for it. Working class kids do the fighting and the dying, and it's an endless cycle, which is why it just needs to stop.
What is your perspective on how China views this conflict and how it could spin out of control in Asia?
Well, I'm certain that China loves us being tied up in the Middle East again, spending our money, spending our resources, spending our military effort, tied up in another Middle East endless conflict that will not end well for us. They would love that, right? I mean, they're building out their military, they're building military bases throughout the Pacific, they're investing in diplomacy, which, oh, by the way, the other great opportunity that the Trump administration gave China is we have pulled back on our diplomacy and our foreign aid programs, and they have actually moved into those programs, and they have invested in that because they actually know that buys goodwill, that buys access, that buys relationships.
You are an interested party, as is every House Democrat, in what happened yesterday in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It now appears Democrats, after that special election vote, could gain 4 seats from that new map. What practical effect will that have on the midterms?
Well, listen, I am opposed to gerrymandering. I have pushed anti-gerrymandering efforts in Colorado and around the country because if you want to actually change our politics, we should have people, Americans, choosing their politicians, not politicians choosing their constituents. This administration started a war to try to tip the scales of this election. We are fighting back because our democracy is at stake. So we're going to fight back. And we're going to try to make sure that we are pushing back when and how we can. And then what needs to happen next is we regain control. And then I will push relentlessly for a federal overall ban, not a patchwork of states where states are battling it out between each other, but a federal patchwork that prohibits this moving forward. That is the only way we have to figure this out moving forward.
Jason Crow, Democrat from Colorado. I appreciate the time and the patience. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Major.